Hi, everyone. Thanks so much for joining us today. I'm so pleased to be joined by my new friend, Karin Tramm, who is the spouse of a retired naval officer. And she is an author and a retired early childhood educator. Hi, Karen.
Hi, Sue. Thank you so much for having me today.
No, I've really enjoyed our chat, and I was really excited to chat with you because, we get a lot of questions from spouses about retirement savings, because we've been harping on people like, hey, take care of your financial security. You should have the basic building blocks that everybody else has. And retirement pay plays a big role in that. And I know that, you're an author now, but I know that you came from the education field. So I was hoping to pick your brain a little bit because one of the frustrations that a lot of military spouses have is that they're moving from location to location, so they're not always able to vest. And so retirement is really kind of one of those afterthoughts for them. But like you were actually able to re save for quite a bit. Sorry, it's Monday. I need all the caffeine. You were actually able to save for quite a bit, and that was probably because you were with DoDEA most of the time. So I was wondering if you could kind of take us for a peek behind the curtain, kind of share with us the techniques you used and maybe share some tips?
So, when I first started teaching, I was working on Guam, and this was not in the military schools. This is pre-DoDEA in Guam. And I was able to contribute to their retirement fund in Gov Guam. And when I left there, I took that money and rolled it into an IRA. So I never saw it. It just went into that account and sat there for a bit. And then I started teaching for DoDEA, and it was DoDDS then. I was in the Philippines, and I transferred to Germany, and I was able just to that account stays active. We don't have to stop it and start it again. Once you're in the system, you're in the system. So I was in Germany for a year and then in Naples, Italy for 2 years after I got married. And so for that 5 year period, I was able to contribute to my retirement fund. And then I was out of DoDEA for a while. I had a break in service. Again, I rolled it into an IRA and let it sit there. And when I came back into DoDEA a few years later, I was able to pay back that money that I had taken out with a little interest. And then it continued to accumulate in my retirement fund until I retired. The DoDEA system is a three-pronged system. They of course have their own retirement fund that I contribute to. They have TSP, which we are able to contribute to, and they also do matching funds for us up to 5%. And then also Social Security is a piece of that retirement as well. I will say, as a teacher, for us, I felt like we needed to do some investing on our own outside of that too. So we, followed the rule, pay yourself first, and we invested in mutual funds, and of course that followed us wherever we went. So to me, that was really important too, to continue with that, as well as the other, because it's all important. Once you pull the plug and you retire, you're happy for every penny that you have. And working with DoDEA, it just moves seamlessly from one school to the next. I worked in 5 different schools, so it was an easy thing. I mean, besides PCSing.
No, that's awesome. I mean, I think that's awesome. And so for you, retirement wasn't an afterthought. You always had your eye on it, like, okay, pay yourself first. So that means contribute at least to the
Right.
max. Yeah.
And I have to say, my first year in Dodge in the Philippines, which was long ago, I'm not going to say how long ago it was. It was probably before you were born. It was a
You're
long time
kind.
ago, but
No.
my assistant principal sat down with me when I was filling out my paperwork because I really did not have a lot of financial savvy at that point. And he said, okay, you're going to automatically get 1% from Dodds, but if you put 5% there, we're going to match it. And that's free money. And that was the best advice because at that point I was still single and, I had a lot of spending money. And when you put that money away, without seeing it, you don't feel that at all. And
Right.
that's something, we've done with our mutual funds as well, is just made it a habit. We never even see it. It goes direct deposit into that. And that advice that I got from him really, I felt like started me out on a good track.
Oh, good habits. Yeah. He
Yeah.
started on a good habit right off the bat. So I hope you guys have read Karen's highlight on the website. If you haven't, though, I thought, Karen, maybe we talk a little bit about your time as an educator and then what made you transition to being an author. Was there a story that you
Okay.
had to get out?
Yes. So, just a little background. I started teaching in Guam. That was my first teaching experience, and I went over there because I had a friend that I went to college with, and her father was in the Navy, and she said, "You need to come over here. There's a lot of there's a lot of teaching jobs here." And I was kind of nervous. I'd never been out of the States before, and there were no jobs for teachers. And so I thought, okay, I'll just go for a year. And I took a $500 loan from my parents and I got a one-way ticket and I flew out there and I got a job and I loved it. And I really got the overseas bug when that happened. So I extended and I went another year, I stayed another year. And then I came back to the States and went to graduate school. And while I was in graduate school, I applied for a position with DoDDS. It was DoDDS back then, it's DoDEA now. And I had met someone in Guam who had worked for DoDDS previously. She was an Air Force wife and she told me about it. So I applied and I got hired for a job in the Philippines. So I went to the Philippines and I taught first grade there. That's where I met my husband. He was on a ship that came in and we met and he left and went to Somalia and then he went to Naples, Italy. And I thought, well, gosh, I'd like to get over to Europe. So I put in for a transfer and I got transferred to Germany. And I was there for a year. And while I was in Germany, we got married. And then I moved down to Naples at the end of the school year. So I taught 2 years in Naples. Then I was out of DoDEA for a while and I had that break in service. And that's what I was talking about when I rolled that into an IRA and just let it sit for a bit. We went back to Guam for me. It was his first time there, but my second, and I loved it because I knew what to expect and I knew I could get a job there. So I was on Guam again. And then we went to Monterey where he went to PG school. And from there, we went to Iceland. And well, in Monterey, I had my kids. So I had two boys there. And when we got to Iceland, the DoDEA school there offered me a job that I had committed myself to staying at home with my boys because I knew that was important. And I knew that that time with them would never come back. And I knew teaching would, and it did. And so I took those 2 years off as a teacher and stayed home with them. But the one good thing that happened while we were in Iceland is it really let me kind of redefine myself as we do every single time we move. I was really interested in photography and I had dabbled a little bit in photojournalism and writing travel articles for newspapers. So when I was there, I was able to get a regular column writing for the base newspaper, the White Falcon, and started a photo business. And I loved that. It was a lot of fun. It wasn't teaching, but it was something I could do from my house. And I wrote articles for families and I took my kids with me and we, explore different areas and then write a little article about it for the paper. And that was a great thing. So from there, we moved back to the States, to Virginia. We were in Virginia Beach for 2 years and then to Spain. And while we were in Spain, I started my photo business again and I went back to teaching again. I taught half day in the beginning and then full day. And I had my photo business on the side and was teaching, and writing kind of fell to the side during that time period. It was a lot on my plate there. We were in Spain for about 4 years and then my husband retired and I got transferred to Vicenza, Italy, to the army base there. And he retired and joined me there. And we were there 16 years. And he became a
Wow.
teacher as well while we were there. So we were in Vicenza when COVID happened. And Italy took it really hard. They got hit very hard in the beginning. And the first death actually occurred just miles away from where we were living in a little town named Vaux, where we used to always go and buy wine. And when that happened, we didn't really have any idea that things were going to unfold as quickly as they did. It was our 100th day of school for me, and I taught kindergarten, and that's a very big deal. And I put my kids on the bus on a Friday afternoon, and I said, "I'll see you Monday." And schools closed. I never saw them again. So there was a lot of need for closure for me for that. And not only the school part, but my own family, they were in Florida, my parents and my sister, but my children, my personal children, I had one son that was in the Peace Corps in Thailand and another one who was a student in Miami. So both of them were displaced and they couldn't come to Italy because we were closed down. My youngest was the one in Miami. He was able to stay on his campus in his apartment building. It's Florida International. So they had some students that couldn't go home, but he was locked down in this building, and it was, it made him anxious and that made me anxious. My other son that was in Thailand, he was brought back to the States and he had nowhere to go. So he just, we were, it was a little bit scary. He just had to find places where he could stay for periods of time. He couldn't go to my parents' house because they're both in their 80s, and my mom has some immune issues. So that was a very stressful time for us. And I started journaling because it was just a way to keep track of things. And people would reach out to us and they would ask us, what's going on there now. It was hard for me to keep up because, as you know, things happen very quickly once they started. So I just got out a piece of paper. One day I woke up and I asked my husband, I said, could you bring me a legal pad? And I started making notes and I wrote for 100 days. And then that is what became the book, was 100 days. So it's, the book is right here. It's called
Very
100
cool.
days, 100 days smart, which is something we say to our kids on the 100th day of school, which was the day we locked. And I wrote for 100 days. So it was just the very beginning of our first lockdown. We had three big ones there, but that was the beginning. And it's not, you know, some people go, oh my gosh, I don't want to read a book about COVID. It's still, it's emotional and it's divisive in our society right now, but it is a lighthearted look at how, what it was like to try to teach kindergartners online, because that was huge. And I'm not all that good at technology. And so we were learning a lot together, and they taught me things and I taught them things. And I think everybody got some life lessons out of that time during the pandemic. So that's what the book is about. And that's how I turned from teaching to writing. So I was working on that writing, and we stayed there for 2 more years after the pandemic. I mean, we opened right up in the fall. We were face to face immediately. And I was there for 2 years, but I was ready to go. And the pandemic really changed a lot of things for me, both in the classroom and also personally. It really made me redefine my priorities and know I really wanted to come back and spend some time with my family in Florida. And it was the right time to go. So we came back to the States in 2022. So we've been back for 2 years now. So that's kind of, that was the long story long, sorry.
Oh, no worries. And it sounds like the book was very cathartic for you, the whole process of
It
writing the
was,
book
for
about it.
sure.
So, full transparency, I have also been able to contribute to an anthology at Elva Reese. So, I worked with the team. But I
Oh,
love
you
what you
know,
said
okay.
about, yeah, but I love what you said about your team at Elva Reese Publishing, walking you through the steps of writing and producing a book. I mean, because that's not always the case. So, for aspiring authors out there, how does the process work? And do they work with anyone, or do they have to choose to work with you?
So for me, once I had put my book together and I thought I had something that might work, I started looking at different books that I read, who the publishers were, and I can't even remember what book I read that was from El Doresa. But that name stuck with me because it was for and about military families. And I Googled them and I went on their website, and they have a call for stories because they're traditional publishers. So when their call for stories came, I looked at, they had like a little Google form to fill out, and it was totally overwhelming for me. I thought I can never ever do this. So I started filling it out and filling it out. And it took me a year. I was just
Uh-huh.
so overwhelmed with that. And at first I just looked at it and thought, I can never do this. But then little by little, baby steps, I started trying to, figure out what came next. And finally, at the end, when I've gotten through all the things that I needed to do, I didn't even know what a book proposal was. I Googled a lot of stuff. When I finally got through everything, I was still very nervous about it. And I was in the States. It was summer vacation. I was at my mom's house. I had my computer set up on her sewing machine. And I called her over and I said, watch. And I hit that submit button and I
Oh my
just
God,
kind of shook when I did it. I said,
cool.
okay. There it goes. Let's see what happens. So in 2 months, in September, I got an email from them that saying that they were interested, and so I had a video meeting with the publisher, and they accepted the book, and I was so excited. It took about 18 months to from that point until when the book came out. And I did tell her right then, I'm in the process of retiring from government service and moving back from over 20 years overseas, and buying a house when I get there. So
No
I
big deal.
I I need to publishing a book in there is just one more thing, but really I need to get out of I need to get past those things before I move forward with the book. And she was
Yeah.
great about that. So I'm sure that things were happening in the background while I was going through all that. But once I kind of landed on my feet here in the States, when they were ready, they said, okay, you're part of the editing team. So I was able to look at the documents and go through and talk with them. Because, as a writer, if you've written things before, things that sound clear to you don't always sound clear to other people. So, they were very good asking me questions and asking for my input and allowing me to edit along with them and answering my questions, because I had a lot of questions. I did not know anything about this. I've been a kindergarten teacher forever, and all of a sudden I'm trying to edit, not by myself, but be part of this team that's editing a book. And I didn't even know what I didn't know. I didn't know what questions to ask as we went along, and they were so patient with me. And I'm still so very grateful for that. So we got through that part, and then they also asked my opinion on the book cover. They got someone to do the cover for me. They have artists that do that, but asked for my input, ideas that I would like to see there. So we worked together on that, and she did a super job. I really like how it turned out. And then they also did, and then they did press releases for me. They did some initial advertising and social media things for me. Although marketing falls squarely on the author now. So I'm learning a lot about that, because that's something I didn't know. There's so many things I still don't know. I don't know what I don't know, but I'm learning as I go along. And they have been great, just, holding my hand and listening to me and answering my questions and making me feel like I'm part of their team. And I love that. I felt very included. So
So I think that's part of your success then, right? Is that you actually found a team that fit right in with like the way you like to work. And I think that is really key, because if you have a bad experience, you're like, oh, forget this career switch. I'm not doing it. That's for the birds. I don't want to be an author. So I mean that's a really good tip, but I wonder if you have any other tips for people thinking about making a career switch, because you did it quite successfully.
Well, I think that you have to do your homework and look around and see exactly what it is you want to do, and be flexible and ask those questions. Ask those questions. And this is a hard thing, because when you do make a career switch, I mean, for me, I've been a teacher for almost 40 years, for a long time. I felt like I was at the top of my profession. People were coming to me asking me questions, and then all of a sudden I was the one on the bottom rung of the ladder saying, what's a book proposal? How do
I
you do
don't
a
know
book
what,
launch?
yeah.
I didn't know any of that stuff. And I had to really research. I learned to build a website, which that's another story. It you just have to do your homework, and then be flexible, and then also you have to be ready to be uncomfortable, because
Mhm.
again, like I said, asking questions and being a rookie, I was uncomfortable with that. I had to learn to do things like like public speaking that I always haven't been comfortable with. I can talk to kindergartners all day long, but standing up in front of a group of teachers and doing a book talk, or a group anywhere doing a book talk, that was something I had to learn to be more comfortable with. I'm still learning that.
You're
So
doing just
I think thank you. I think you have to, research, be persistent too, just like I was with that application. Just take your time, go through, bite off little chunks, just do a little bit at a time, but keep moving forward. Don't let don't let yourself be overwhelmed. And when you are in a transition period, you know, allow yourself to fail, allow yourself to get up and dust yourself off and move forward. I think as military spouses, we're all good at that. We've done it enough times with transitions, you know, we deserve a little grace when we move forward. And I think that again, as military spouses, that's what we do. So I would just say be patient, be persistent, and just keep moving forward.
I love that you said that about the grace because I think we're really good at giving everybody else grace, and we're not that great about giving ourselves grace.
Yeah. Sometimes we have to take a big breath and go, okay, I'm trying that again.
Yeah, and I mean, I think it takes a lot of courage though to be willing to be uncomfortable and and it takes courage and grit to fail and then get back up. And by failing, I mean, okay, I didn't finish that whole form today. I'm not worried about finishing the whole form today. It'll get done when it gets done. So, I mean, I always leave it up to the person who I'm interviewing to have the last thought. So you can have the last word. You can say whatever you want as advice to all the spouses out there. But I'd love it if you would talk a little bit about how you developed a little bit of that grit and resilience because um I think as I get older, I have a tougher time doing things that are new to me because I know I'm going to fail. And you just feel like you have so much expectation put on you because you're of an age where people are like, surely you must have your S together by now to where you know how to do everything. And then you're like, no. But I feel like I don't know whether we put the expectation on ourselves or other people put the expectations on us, but I think once you pass a certain age, you're less willing to be vulnerable. So how do you get past that?
Well, I'm not sure if I'm an expert on that. I did have a little quote that I think is in my notes from my book. When we think about how many times we have PCS, how many times we've moved and recreated ourselves. And, this time I'm going to be a writer, and this time I'm going to be a teacher, and this time I'm going to be a bartender, and this time I'm going to do this or that or
I may stay
whatever.
home, get my
And
kids. Yeah.
you just jump in, and when they ask you if you can do something, you say yes and you try it. And then if it's not quite right, well, then you just move, you learn. It's opportunity for learning, and you move forward. And I think that that's really what helps all military spouses, is because we do have this experience with change. And with my job as a teacher, as a kindergarten teacher, when COVID happened, my job completely flip-flopped from being, a hands-on teacher reading to my kids on the carpet to all of a sudden trying to figure out how to navigate this video uh, school. That was complete change. And one thing I wrote in the book was that, I don't really enjoy change. I don't know if I'm good at it, but I have a lot of experience with it. So, sometimes, like we said, you take a big breath, give yourself some grace, and you just move forward. And every time you move forward, if you fall down, you get up, you dust yourself off, and you just keep going. And I think for us, that's how you manage it.
I love it. And those are perfect words to end on. So thank you so much, Karen. I hope you guys all go and read Karen's highlights on our website. And then we are going to share the link for Elva Reza submissions because Karen had submitted that as well. So when, it should be down here in the comments. So check them out there. And thank you to our friends at USAA for making these conversations possible. I have loved chatting with you. I love chatting with all the military spouses I've had an opportunity to interview because everybody's doing such interesting things. So with that, I'm just gonna say thanks so much for tuning in, and I hope you guys join us again here next week. Bye, guys.
Thank you. Bye bye.